exciting bit about, being able to do dance festival piece. What I want to do is just dispel, I guess, some of the myths that some people might have as far as putting your pieces together. The first myth I particularly like is that there is no particular order that your dance festival piece needs to be put together in. For me, I'm a very visual person. I know that, visual and auditory. So I would generally find an idea or something that I like. For primary schools, I try and keep it relatively simple. And I'll talk about some of these sources of inspiration in a minute, because some of them loan themselves much more to high school, some of them loan themselves much more to primary school. I find an idea that I think I could utilize, and from here I break my item into sections. And I'll take that into the next slide, because that's the next bit, but I've divided into sections, and then I put the movement in. You can start with a piece of music. You can start with your movement and then bring in your music with it. For me, the intent is really the underlying thing, or what you would like the audience to feel or to actually have as a response to the piece that you're putting onto the stage. I can't grab my head around not starting with the intent, and whether I go intent, movement, music. The intent for me is that research base that Glenda talked about, which is the art form. It always just starts. My inspiration last year was very random. We did a piece. I was at the museum with my husband, the Sydney Museum, and I was looking at the first contacts. They did a big first contacts of Aboriginal history up there, and of course there was a quote on the wall that just had said something along the lines of, the Aboriginal people would notice the movement of the birds change when something big was going to happen. For example, flood, fire, along that sort of line, and they would use that as their guide to what they did with their own mob and looking after their own people. So I sort of looked at it as a funny sort of thing, and I said, oh my gosh, I could see that as something I could use for dance festival. And my husband, who does know very little about dancing, what do you mean? And I go, well, I could see that, I could tell that story about how Aboriginal people would have done that. Now, I didn't have the time to go to take my idea to the local elders to get approval to turn it into an Aboriginal dance. That wasn't where I wanted to go to. I don't have enough expertise or knowledge in that area. But I can still tell the story about how animals and people connect to help each other or to work together in nature. So I broke my section down into 5 pieces from there, which I'll talk about in a little minute, and then I looked at my music that would support those pieces in terms of this story. You can source your inspiration from lots of different places, and it can be the most random thing. One year, and it was quite a few years ago now, the students were really interested in MasterChef. MasterChef must have been a relatively new thing. They were coming in, "Did you watch MasterChef last night?" Blah, blah, blah. And I went, oh, let's use that as a dance festival piece. And I said, right, we could tell the story about what it's like to be in the MasterChef kitchen. Let's look at this as a story. What happens first? They go, oh, well, they're just standing around chatting and prepping. I said, that's what would happen in a kitchen. They're sort of standing around, cutting, chopping, everything's pretty calm. And then I said, and then people start to arrive. So this middle section is few people kind of come in, and of course now we're cooking. So we've got people chopping, and now we're adding people cooking. The tempo's picking up, the emotions of the people are picking up. And then and then you get to the last bit and it's frantic. There's, I've got to get this, and I've got 30 seconds on the clock. So our whole dance festival piece went from this very calm, just having this lovely, conversation, working together, to this, oh my gosh, accidents were starting to happen, because that's what happens when you rush to all out mayhem, which is pretty much the end of the kitchen. I sort of envisage pots and pans from ceiling to floor, and people running around and things getting spilt and running into each other. So from a very simple little idea, which was something that was of interest to the students at that time, I could look at that and say, well, we could tell this as a story. What's it like to be a chef in the kitchen? Initially, I had the whole idea of hanging big swinging doors from the booms. That was my big vision. And actually having this transition of chefs coming in and out of these doors that would move to people on this side and people on that side, and then I went, no, I'm going too big. I need to just strip it back.
Yeah.
And really the whole thing was just about the chefs and what it's like to be in this kitchen. So the source of inspiration come from something so little, like something so small, but was really a fun opportunity to kind of do something that was just a bit crazy and a bit manic. And I'd say to the children, you know, what would you be doing if you're running around and going crazy? I'd be moving like this, and we'd be running here, and yes, the movement's sharp as opposed to something that's nice and smooth, and you're sprinkling things that are lovely smooth movements to now I'm chopping and I'm tipping, and so the movement just matched that. So it can be really, really simple. Books are fantastic. As Glenda said, she's picked a few. We had a great item that a high school did around the book Sudoku, which is the 1,000 paper cranes, and of course it was around that story about Sudoku herself. You can explore emotions, which tends to be more high school based because it's something that you need to experience as part of this art form research. I've dabbled in this a little bit myself, and I don't think it was as successful. I did a piece one year called Deja Vu, and we were talking about to the children, we had to do a lot of discussion around, you know what it's like when you feel like you've done something before, but I don't think it was anywhere near as effective as, say, my MasterChef piece, because it's an emotion. High school people have that ability to understand what the emotion is, so I would just be very mindful when you're looking at primary pieces that can be a hard thing.
I think that's even hard in general, because a lot of kids don't experience, and people don't experience those emotions the same. So I think if you're like, you know, this grabbing your head because when you're frustrated, and then they're like, well, I don't do that, I like curl up in a ball and things like that. So it does make it, emotions are hard.
Yeah. Nature, animals, fantastic, easy. Anything to do with nature. I know one of the pieces from Uluru Road last year, I think it was, Brooke Irving, who's a wonderful choreographer, experience. She'd found a YouTube clip that talked about nature, and it had this lovely voiceover. That was her starting point. And then from there, she developed all these beautiful little trees, and the students sort of moved, and it was her message was that we need to look after our earth because, you know, we're gradually destroying it. Everyday concepts. One year we've had a dance that was actually a game of chess. So the children were chess pieces. I'm thinking whether you were actually in that, was one of them.
No, I wasn't in that.
Yeah, and then, so the children actually were in the chess pieces. The chess pieces actually sort of went into battle with one another. So any everyday sort of, I guess, activities and things. You can look at relationships, things like friendships. Again, you have to really be mindful about what is the message that I would like the audience to know about friendships. Is it that I want to show you can be on your own, and then groups of people can gather around you and you can build friendship groups? Is it that I want to pass knowledge from friendship group? Is it a friendship group that falls apart? So you're sort of thinking, well, here's my starting point, but what do I want the audience to understand and now learn from this particular piece? Cultural dances, we've had dances around gypsies, we've had a Vikings dance where they explored the history of Vikings. And they looked at their life, and that was something that was actually built as an intent. Of course, you can start with music and a piece of music as well. So I could have just gone on and made pages and pages, but intent and ideas can come from anything. When you least expect it, I tend to put it in my notes in my phone, travelling around, I go, oh, that would actually be really good to explore for a dance festival piece. Put it in. Some pieces loan themselves more to certain children and their skills and ability that I have one year and not so much the next year. So it's something that you can experiment with and kind of build up a little bit of a resource. Any order. Choreography can happen in any order. For me, as I mentioned before, I start with an idea, I break it down into sections, and then I look at the music that would support it. And once I've got my music, the movement, I can start to visualize what the movement might look like. I have my piece of music actually from last year, which I'm going to leave at the moment because I really want to just get you now into developing something yourself. But this can happen in any order. Very quickly though, I do want to put in here a little bit of information about music. How will your music support your intent and the sections? So if you want music that's showing calmness, that's the sort of sound that you're after. And you can build that just with your music. I started with lyric music. I don't use lyric music anymore. It's funny how we kind of go down that path as choreographers. Lyrics box me in where I feel like I've got to do, you know, everyone says hands in the air and people go hands in the air. I actually want something that tells a story, the music to support the story, not to follow what the lyric is. So I think I had 30 seconds of lyric in my piece last year of a 5-minute primary school dance. And it was very purposeful, actually. We get a chance, I'll play it today. Movement, manipulate the movement to convey an intent. So you might be just, you know, wanting the children to high five, maybe looking at friendships and high five. There's so many different aspects that you can do regarding a movement for even a simple high five, which I'm sure Hannah will talk about. A high five that might be at the back of the head, a high five that might be high, a high five that might be low. Just, you know, a high five that might be behind a back. So rather than just doing something that would be a very traditional movement, you can manipulate that to look a bit more interesting. You still have the same idea, but you're playing around with it a little bit. Props and costumes. I'm not even going to look at Olivia. Make sure they're purposeful. If they support your idea, use them and they can be really, really effective. But having them to fill a void actually creates more of the eyesore, if that makes sense.
I feel like going through, almost like it's like you're writing a draft novel as well. If I had put all of this into practice earlier and been a bit more organised and seen that logistics were not fitting, and then I could have revised and taken things out. Like I think if you kind of try to do that, like I know everyone's short for time, but if you can try to practice with your props and your costumes more before you come to the rehearsal at the IPAC, then you'll see that like what works and doesn't, you can, you know, eliminate, almost edit. You can edit that out and we're gonna, you know, swap and change for this, and that would have been a better process for me to make it better than the actual
They have to complement your intent. They have to support your intent. It's almost like by adding in this prop, the audience will just get my intent a little bit more. It'll be a little bit clearer. Putting it in for the sake of going, oh yeah, the children will look cute, is not really going to solve the problem or probably what you're trying to fix in the first place. Yeah, if you understand that. So I just want to get into here and get started. So what I would love you to be able to do is pick up a book. Glenda's got a couple here.